This is Stephanie from Stephanie B Creativity, and I'm here with my never before seen on the internet raglan sleeved sweater made on the circular knitting machine. And I'm so excited. I hope that you are excited to learn how to make this sweater. Raglan seams worked top down in flat pieces. So you're making shaped panels. Super easy shaping, just increases. We're not doing any decreases. Let's get to the table and I can give you all of the details about how this sweater was put together. I want to go over some of the details on this, and then I will show you how I do the shaping for the front panels, the side panels, and the sleeves. So we'll go over that in just a minute, so stick around. But I do want to go over some of the technical information so that if you go into this wanting to make a sweater for yourself, which I hope you do, you'll have a little idea of what's going on here. Now, these are both sweaters that were made from the same basic pattern. This colored one here, it was made with size 3 yarn. This was made, the heathered natural tones was made with size 4 yarn. And I do have all of my measurement information here. So I'm going to tell you the number 3 yarn, I used 6.4 ounces of yarn, which is 181 grams of size 3 yarn. This is a very drapey pattern. This is much more of a summer weight sweater, so you can make yourself a beautiful summer weight t-shirt, raglan t-shirt, your 3/4 sleeves, easy wearing, very, very comfy, and lightweight. The measurements on this of the neck is 20 inches, 10 inches from top of shoulder to top of shoulder, and then basically 20 inches. The distance from the underarm to underarm, total of 35 inches, and I am bigger than that. But I can wear this sweater. I'll pop a picture here of me wearing the sweater. It is much more fitted, and I probably would increase the width of my little side panels here to give me a little bit more ease. The length of it from the edge of the neck to the edge of the bottom hem is 25 inches. Now, the other sweater was made with a size 4 worsted weight yarn, and it is considerably heavier. This sweater comes in at 11.8 ounces. I used almost completely 4 skeins of the Lion brand Wool Ease, which are 3-ounce skeins. I used almost full 4 skeins to make my whole sweater. This one here was finished a little bit more than my t-shirt sweater. I wanted to finish up the neck here because this is a worsted weight yarn. And I did not do a gauge swatch. It is considerably bigger. So same stitch counts, except I did add 2 stitches to all 4 of these little panels, which means I increased the whole thing by 8 stitches over my smaller sweater. The measurements on the big sweater from top of shoulder to top of shoulder across is 11 inches top of shoulder to top of shoulder, so approximately 22 inches for the neck opening, and that is after I put the crocheted edge here on, and that was because it just felt a little too unstructured and floppy. So now I've got this real pretty finished edge. You could do any kind of finishing. I'm not going to show the finishing edge how I did it because it's up to you. You can make your edges however you want. I did do a little half double crochet ring around the sleeves and around the bottom, and then I did a little bit more half double crochet So it's 2 rows of half double crochet on the bottom. The distance on this sweater from underarm to underarm gives me a circumference of 40 inches. So it's 20 inches from underarm to underarm side seam. This is 40 inches. This is the smaller sweater is only 35 inches. So that's how you can, one way to change the size of your sweater instantly is just change the size of your yarn, because we can't change the size of our needles. You can change the number of stitches in a panel. The center panel here is the full width that I can do on my Sentro 48 pin. So I can do 45 is the widest I can go. And my sleeves were done following the general instructions on how to make my 10-minute cowl. So I've got the link up here for the 10-minute cowl, but I did start at 20 stitches across the top when I cast on for the sleeves. It would work for men, it would work for women, work for teens, kids. All you're going to do is change the number of stitches and the number of panels. And it's really hard for me to completely work that out for all of the different sizes. This is more of a recipe for you to figure out for yourself. Figured out that with the number 4 yarn, my stitch count is 3 stitches to the inch with a worsted weight on my Sentro knitting machine. With the number 3 yarn, it is 4 stitches per inch. So because I did the same number of stitches across, the bigger yarn makes a bigger sweater. What I wanted to show you was with this one, you can definitely see the construction of this sweater. The purple one here was my prototype. I had the bright idea of how to make this top-down panel after I realized that my 10-minute cowl would work as a sweater sleeve. As soon as that idea hit my brain, it was like, oh my gosh, I've got to try this. I have to make a sweater like this. We are going to start working on figuring out the size sweater you want to make. I already know that my swatch gauge on my size 3 yarn on my 48 pin Sentro circular knitting machine is 4 stitches per inch and 5 1/4 rows per inch. So once you have the swatch gauge, you know what your swatch is. And I measured that over 4 inches, and I measured in several different spaces. So 4 inches wide, 4 inches tall. My swatch, I did the same thing over here on this sweater. I have measured my swatch gauge, so I know that on my size 4 yarn on my 48 pin Sentro, I am getting 3 stitches per inch, but I'm still getting 5 stitches per inch in row count. So the row count did not change as much as the stitch count. For this sweater, if I do the same number of stitches over here, over 4 inches on this sweater, I am going to only have 12 stitches, right? Because this is 3 stitches per inch. On the first sweater, I'm going to have 16 stitches. So that 4 stitches every 4 inches adds an inch to my big sweater, right? I know it's like magic how things grow and increase. If you look at this sweater and this sweater are exactly, these 2 sweaters are super close in the number of stitches. But the size, look at that. The size difference. It's like the number 3 yarn is a t-shirt and the number 4 yarn is a sweater. How cool is that? I think that what you need to make this project successfully in any size, you need to get a couple measurements. You need to know your measurement from your neck to as long as you want your sweater to be. You need to know the chest size or bust. So the chest size from the underarm to the underarm. Okay? That's where you get your circumference of your sweater. This is the first place where that gets wide, or the widest your sweater will ever be, is from this underarm seam to the underarm seam. If you wanted to make this flare out, you could on your, see, I'm designing as I'm going along here. I haven't done this yet, but you could increase some stitches on the hip to make this flare out. So once you've gone down as far as you wanted for the center of the torso and you wanted to start flaring out so that it lays even smoother over your hips or over your tummy, then you would increase some stitches on the sides. Right now, these little side panels are only 15 stitches wide on this sweater. I did go 17 stitches wide on this sweater. So the difference between 15 stitches and 17 stitches. Okay, look at that. Whoa. 17 stitches got me over just a little over 4 inches right here, and 15 stitches right here is only 2.5, 3, 2.5. 15 stitches wide right here is about 2.5 inches. That's not right. That's not right, because I'm at 16 stitches wide. So, aha, there we go. I'm going, hold it a second, that's not right. So I'm at 3 inches for 15 stitches. And I'm at, this is my line right there. 17 stitches is at basically 5 inches. It's a little over 5 inches. But, so 3 inches versus 5 inches. I gained 2 inches on this sweater just from changing the size of the yarn and adding 2 stitches. Totally modifiable. You can do it. You can do it. You just, again, know what your hip size is, know what your chest size is. The hip is the same measurement on my sweater as the chest. So on this one, this is a 35-inch hip. This is a 35-inch chest. The neck opening itself is 20 inches total. So yes, there is some math. There is some testing and playing. Find your yarn. Make a prototype sweater. This comes together so fast. Both of these sweaters, I was able, if I did them all in one day, I could have done one sweater in a day. All right. Each sweater would have been done in a day. My actual hands-on knitting time for both sweaters, because they're both basically the same number of stitches, and I didn't have any problems with this yarn dropping stitches or tucking stitches, so I didn't have to waste time fixing as I was going along. Both of these have a hands-on knitting time for me and the way I knit of approximately 3.5 hours. 3.5 to 4. You know, you got to take a break every once in a while. The other half of the time I spent on these sweaters was the hand sewing to put them together. Doing all of the mattress stitching of the side panels to the front panels and the underarm. Okay, when you choose a yarn that is a consistent color, you don't end up with these color changes like I got here. All right. It's not as obvious if you make a little mistake in your mattress stitching. This is one panel here and one panel here, the side seam, and the edges of those panels I finished all of my increase edges and cast off edges and cast on edges with a slip stitch. So you can see right here, that little slip stitch. I did that to all of my edges, and that made it easier to stitch the sweater together and to keep things nice and tidy. I didn't like how this raglan came together for the two panels side to side. I did a quick little slip stitch over the top of my seams. It does bring a little bit more attention to them, gives a little bit of texture. So you just have to work out what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And as I said before, make sure and do a gauge swatching and give yourself enough time to make a whole sweater. A weekend, make yourself a sweater in a weekend and see how it fits and what you need to change. And, you know, make it with yarn that you like, but it doesn't have to be the expensive yarn in your stash. It doesn't have to be the perfect yarn. Just get something that's the same diameter yarn. So if you want a size 3 yarn, a lightweight sweater that can be used as a t-shirt, then go for a 3 and make sure to measure your gauge and swatch. But then do your measurements and figure out, if I have a bust that's 42, 4 times 42, so I would need to do 168 stitches divided around my panels, knowing that my center panels are both going to be 45, so that's 90 inches taken out. Then I divide the rest of that between divide it by 4. Whatever your leftover is, divide it by 4 and figure out what your 2 side panels on each side are going to be. I hope that helps. I hope that's clear and understandable. Let's get into doing some of the actual knitting on the knitting machine. I'm going to show you how I cast on and increase on a front panel and on the 2 side panels, going to the right and going to the left. And then the sleeve is worked exactly the same way as the sweater front, except once you're done with all of your increases, you're going to cast on 3 stitches and then continue stitching around until the sleeve is the length you want it to be. There's no ribbing on this sweater either. Now, you can put ribbing on this sweater. You can finish this sweater absolutely by picking up the stitches, cast off with waste yarn, pick up the stitches onto a big circular needle, and do some lovely shaping and ribbing around the neckline. You could do the same thing on your sleeves, work the sleeves for as long as you want them to be, pick up the cuffs, reducing and ribbing on your sleeves. These sweaters were done 100% of the knitting was done on the knitting machine. Let's get started making some of these panels. Casting on, I'm going to do my center front panel first, and I want to have some waste yarn on here. So I just grabbed some cast off waste yarn. Which means I'm going from 48 to 26. When working on panels, you always go to the pin past your working needle. And you want to make sure that you are holding onto your yarn and giving a little bit of tension at the end to make sure that your needle catches the yarn and it doesn't fall off. Down here at this end, going 1 past, keeping some tension on my yarn. Make sure that it stays in the yarn guide, but keep some tension on your yarn. That is the end of my main waste yarn. I am now going to just grab, it doesn't matter what the weight is, just grab a piece of waste yarn that's a single strand, so that we'll be able to pull this yarn off really easy. The cast on yarn is the harder yarn to take off. All right, we're going to start on our main yarn. It doesn't matter which edge I'm starting on. I'm going to do 4 or 5 rows of 27 stitches right here at the top, and that gives me a little margin of some flat edge before I start my increases going down the sides. It's the 22nd of February, the day that I'm doing this, and we've got snow in the Pacific Northwest. And they just put us under an advisory that we might be getting up to 2 inches of snow, which is really odd around here. So now I'm going to knit down. And I'm going to start my counting on this edge over here, even though I've knit across one full pass. I'm going to start my counting on this edge. There we go. Down. And now I'm going to come back and start my increase rows. We are going to be increasing on both sides. 1 stitch will increase on this side, 1 stitch will increase on the other side. Then we will do 2 rows in between, and then do an increase on both ends and 2 rows in between until we have all of the stitches filled except for the last 3. And then we will work our panel straight down for another 95 rows. So we're going to increase 1. So increase the stitch, work your way back to the other end, increase the stitch, work your way back, then we're going to go down to the left, no increase, and now we're going to increase 1. And increase 1. Now we're going to work a full row back, no increase, and now we're going to increase. Working down, we're going to increase. Now we're not going to increase. We're working back. We're not going to increase. We're working back. And now we're going to increase. So it was increase 1, work your way back, increase 1, work your way back. You're going to knit a stitch not increased on the end. You're going to knit the stitch not increased on the end. And now we're going to go back and we're going to increase 1. See, it's that easy. Just always make sure that this last stitch on both ends, that they always are down before you go across to knit. Now we've knit that stitch. We're going to knit the other one. And now we're going to increase. I'm actually heading on to my row 42 here. I am now going into just straight panel mode. No fiddling around with increases now. I'm resetting my counter to 0. I'm going to do 90 rows, which is about, or 95 rows. I'll see you back here when I'm all done with this panel. All right, we're finishing up row 95. Take this off and put on my waste yarn. Now, really, you don't need to put the zip strip on this end, but I'm going to go ahead and do it just to make it quicker and easier. Drop the stitches. Sometimes the first and last on a panel don't want to come off the hook. That's okay. Just gently take it off the hook. And now we have a front panel to our sweater. I'm going to cast on 3 stitches. Make sure that that end stitch is worked by putting the yarn under both of these pins right here into the yarn guide. Watch that. Make sure that it pops down and pops down. All right. You don't want to drop a stitch up here at the top because you need all 3 of those. All right, that's enough of those. And now I'm going to put some of this obnoxious fluorescent green. This is going to be the easy removal strip. Just 3 stitches of that. Whoops. There. All right, let's get a couple rows on here. I'm just tightening all of my stitches up a little bit, just grabbing those pieces of yarn and just sort of tightening things up. On this one, I am doing my increases to the left. Then the second one, I will do my increases to the right. You need to make sure that you have the slope on the left and a slope that's going to the right to finish your sweater properly. If you don't, you'll end up with 2 that are going the same direction, and one of them, when you flip it, will be inside out. And you don't want that, unless you want that. But I don't want that. I want my sweater to have proper knit on the outside on both sides. So this one I will be increasing to 17 stitches total, going to the left. Then second one I will make it increasing to the right. You will actually be making 2 that increase to the left and 2 that increase to the right. So if you want to make 2 of the same direction and then 2 of the same direction, go for it. And then you'll need 2 sleeves. So I'm working to the left. I've increased 1. I'm working back. This edge is going to stay constant. It is going to be the straight edge that is joined to your front panel. So you want to make sure it stays nice and clean and tidy. We are doing an increase, knitting down, coming back, and doing an increase. So we're on the increase. I've knit back to my selvage edge, my side that's connecting to the front panel edge, and now increase. So we've increased, we're knitting back to the start, we're knitting back to the increase, and we're increasing again. We're going to go, this is number 48, so I am going to go to number 16. And that's how wide of a panel I'm going to be making. 17 stitches wide. All right. Increase. Increase. All right, this is my last stitch that I've increased. I'm going to go back to the beginning of my row, reset my counter, and now I'm going to work. So now I'm going to work 75 rows. Remember to stay mindful of your edges. You need them to knit every time. So I'm going to put 1 strip of the obnoxious color in. And then do, 5 or 6 rows of waste yarn. There we go. Side panel with the increases going down the, if you're looking at it, if you're wearing it, this is the left side. All right. All right, this is our increase on the right hand side. So now I'm going to go and do increase 1. This is our staying straight side. We're not going to be increasing this edge. So I'm going from number 2 to number 34 to get 17 stitches. All right, the last increase stitch. And now I'm going to work 75 rows. Then rinse and repeat. Do the exact same thing again. I'm going to make the front, make the 2 sides, and then I'll make the sleeves, and then I can put my sweater together. We'll see you soon. 2 and 3. All right, so now we have the right front, and it looks like I wasn't paying attention, and I did an extra row of stitching in there. I'm going to have to do a little bit of adjusting. I can do that. Casting on 20 for the sleeves, which means I'm going to go to number 19 here. Yeah. Down and back. Increase 1, and just the same as doing the front now, I'm going to increase until I have only 3 stitches left. All right, so at this point here, we have done all of our increases. I'm back to going forward on my machine. I'm now going to increase 1 stitch, and then the next one, I'm going to do a backwards E-wrap under the pin and a backwards E-wrap for these last 2 stitches. And now we have to be really careful. Make sure that it is going underneath of the wrap right there. You see where the tip has gone down? You want that there. Now we're going to go around. Make sure that your stitches are going over the little, over their little pegs. And once we've gone one more round, there we go. We are completely joined now. Waste yarn to remove this. I have made quite a bit of progress. Things that I have done. I have finished both sleeves. These were then, after I finished them, I went along and I did just a little slip stitch with an extra piece of yarn all the way around the opening of that on both sleeves. So both of them are done. That's what the sleeves look like. Pretty nice, pretty nice. I'm really happy. I like the variations in this color also. This color is the natural heather, so I think that's really pretty. I have also got all of my pieces. I went along and all of these, you know, sort of the increase edges, I have done that slip stitch along all of the increase edges also. So on the short ones, right along this edge, it just firms it up. It makes it a lot prettier edge. And I think it's going to be a lot easier when I'm working to attach using those slip stitch edges to give me a nice seam. I think that's going to be really pretty. But the next step after getting the pieces done, I'm not blocking between, there's so much acrylic in it, it's really hard to block. So I'm going to get it all put together and then give it a good wash and a dry and lay it, or wash in a semi-dry and then lay it out. But what I've done is I have laid out my centerpiece and then matched up my side pieces to this seam right here, all the way down, so it matches all the way. I'm sitting down at my desk, so here we go. we've got this right here. This is the neck. This is your raglan sleeve area, your raglan connector for your sleeves. And then this is the center panel and the side panels. And that's how I attach them together. I find my row. I find my column that I'm going to do my stitching in. So I'm not going to use this little selvage edge right here. I'm letting it roll over, and I want to use the next column in. So not the selvage edge, but the next column in. And on both of them, the next column in is going the same direction. So the V's are on the right, and the opening of the V is to the left. You see how those are matching? It's really important. If you match up your columns and you keep them matched all the way through, you're going to get, so I've got one side completely stitched. You're going to get, look at that, an almost seamless look. Now, yes, if you know what you're looking for, you can see that this was a piece together piece. But if you don't know what you're looking for, and if you weren't expecting it to be something that was pieced together, it's very, very difficult to see that. The seams are right here. And they were mattress stitched together. I need to get these two side panels attached, and then I will need to attach the front to the back, and then I will fit the sleeves in. I don't know that I'm going to show you every single step of the way here, just because I don't know how, I might do a few little clips, but I will show you how I do the mattress stitch on a sweater when you're not doing it on a tube, because it is a little bit different, and you do have to pay attention a little bit more closely. I like to work my mattress stitch from the outside, not from the inside, because if I work it from the inside, I end up making a really thick seam, and the thick seam ends up on the outside of my garment. So I want to make sure that my seam folds to the inside. I've got the end of my slope on my front, and I've got the beginning of my slope on the side panel. And right here is where they mesh up. V on the left, which is actually where my marker is. So V's on the left. So that's where I want to come up. And I'm going to leave my tail sticking out because I'm going to use it to tighten my stitching. And V's on the left. So I'm going to come over here. Now this, I am doing my mattress stitch, and it's going to be one bar at a time. So that's another reason why I'm not going to record the whole thing, because I'm sure that you will be bored out of your mind. Though, I find this to be V to the left. I find doing mattress stitch and doing it one bar at a time to be so almost meditative. If I don't have to talk while I'm doing it, if nobody's bothering me, I can just sort of slide into that lovely world of one stitch at a time, being able to be mindful of where my needle is going, picking up one bar at a time, going across, picking up one bar at a time. It's like And sometimes you have to go looking for it. There you are. There you are. All right. One bar at a time. And you'll get to a point where you can start seeing those bars more easily. And what they do is they hide right in the V. I'll show you on the next one. It'll be easier. You see where this V is right here? What you're picking up is the loop, the bar, that's coming around on the inside here. So if you go to the middle between those bars, those V's, see? Here's the leg of this one and the leg of this one, and you go, but where's the bar? You just settle down between that and pick it up. And yeah, I've got a lot of ends here. They're all going to be woven in. I like weaving in my ends. I don't have a problem with weaving in my ends. It doesn't make me grumpy to have to weave in my ends. Some people it does. If that's you, weave in your ends as you go. Then you don't have that big mess to deal with at the end. For me, it's all part of the finishing process. Just like doing the mattress stitch is part of the finishing process. It's actually the middle of the process for me here. Doing my mattress stitch, making sure that I'm staying in the same column all the way down so that I end up with that almost invisible seam. I like the way that this one came together though, with those seams being slightly offset to the sides of the body instead of, you know, doing two panels that are with one seam going down the middle. You can do that. If you wanted to do two panels and have it one seam down the middle, you would basically just do like the side seam or the side panel here, but you would make it so that it was straight going down the center and that it increased just going off one side, and then do the other one so it increases going off one side. I would probably cast on a few more stitches instead of just 3. If I was making it with 2 panels, I would probably cast on about probably 12 stitches on each of these panels and then do the increase. And it would be the increase that, you know, makes most sense for you and gets you the most fabric that you want. But that would be a way to modify this. You could, you know, if you needed even more, you could do that with two bigger panels with the increases on one increase set on each side and join them together, and then do 2 smaller panels that come down the sides, just like we did here. These can be modified. I have not done the math to figure out different sizes. This would be a size medium, large, probably for about a size 12, American, US size 12. Modify and adjust to your needs. That's all part of being a knitter and designing your own knitwear, right? I never thought that I would be designing knitwear. It's kind of fun. Right here, it's hard to see where that bar is, and I went into the wrong row, so I'm going to back out. Because my row is over here, so I need to back out 2 stitches. Yep, that's where I went wrong. If you go into the wrong column and you notice it, you can pull it out very easily. I definitely would go back and pull out. I did that on the other side that I made. I went halfway down and then realized I had jumped columns, and I just pulled it out. One of the nice things is this cord, this string here that I've put on, there's no knot, so you can pull it all the way through if you wanted to. See, if you look at this, there's the string. See? So you can definitely pull on that. Make sure that it stays out far enough. If you want to make sure that you're not going to lose it, and you don't want to really tie a real knot, do a slip knot, just like you would do for crochet or for knitting. Take a stitch marker and put it through the loop. I'm going to finish this up one stitch at a time, however long it takes me. All right, so there we are, partway done. I have just tightened up my cord. I made sure that it still is stretchy, because if you pull it too tight and you bunch it down hard, you'll end up with a stiff seam that isn't stretchy. And this is a sweater and it's a knit fabric and I want it to stretch. I have assembled the body of my sweater. I've got all of my seams, my long seams. So this is part of the back seam of the narrow panel, the side seam right here, rolling around to the front seam right here. And then on this other side here, I've already attached the sleeve. Look at that. Isn't it cool? The raglan, the yarn, the wool ease yarn is a lot thicker, and so my seams are a little bit chunkier. And where it came together right here, I've got a bit of a funky bump on the sweater. I'm not worried about it. It's not going to affect the wearability of this sweater, but I do want to acknowledge that it's not perfect. Even when I knit a top-down raglan sleeve sweater on circular needles with the same type of yarn, it's still not perfect. I am loving this. And now I'm going to show you on this sweater, the opening here from the top to the bottom of this armhole is actually quite long. It's 14 inches, and the slope of my sleeve here is right at 12 inches. Over the distance going around, I had to incorporate that 2 extra inches. But look, it did it. It flows in. You've got that nice, the straight up and down columns, and then the slope of the angles going off. So you get that angle thing going on that happens with a knitted raglan sleeve sweater. I'm starting down here at the bottom. This is the bottom seam right here. So I'll just mark it so you can see it. So this is the bottom seam. Oh, and there's not been any blocking on this. And if you look, it's not doing any funky rolling on the edges. So I'm pretty happy about that. I need to turn my sleeve inside out. Because I am going to work from the outside. So here's 1, 2, 3. So that's my center stitch. Just like that. And now you can see where having the slip stitches around the edge is going to make it a lot easier to stitch this together. Because we did a slip stitch around all of our increase edges, we have a lovely chain on top. And I'm going to be able to go in and pick up It's just the top of each loop becomes like a bar. See right there? That would be the bar at the top of the chain inside my little loops. But what I'm doing here first is, so now I've got it attached here, I'm going to grab another stitch marker. I like these clipping stitch markers because you can use them like pins and they don't fall out. And then I'm going to attach there. What I'm doing here is I am going to be easing the body to fit the sleeve. The body has a lot of fabric here, and I'm going to stretch the sleeve slightly and allow the body to just drape in. So I'm going to make sure that that matches. So here we go. I'm still just getting this to fit. And there is a little bit of a dip right here where the panels joined. There's things I'm still working out. And, you know, this was only the second time I had done the pattern, but I wanted to get it up and available to you if you wanted to try and make your own raglan sleeve sweater. You know, we can see if we can figure things out together. I think that's part of the fun of this, is that it's the working out. You see how there's a lot more of that sweater body than there is sleeve, but you give just a tiny bit of a stretch, and look how much. See, I'm stretching the sleeve. I'm not stretching the body. I'm just stretching the sleeve a little bit, and you can see how much this will pick up, right? If you're interested in any of the things that I'm using, there are affiliate links down below in the description box. I will put the recipe, I think I've said that before, but I'll put the recipe with any modifications that I've actually made into the description field of this video also. And if you want to, you know, if you're feeling like you want to support my channel in some way, you can always make a donation to my yarn fund. There's a link down below, and I'll pin it at the top of the comments also. I'm taking my darning needle, and I will start up here. This is at the top of the sleeve, at the shoulder. I'm going to grab an extra little clip, because once I've got my yarn, this is like one of the best little things that I figured out, which was slip knot on the end of your yarn that you're using to mattress stitch with, so that you can pull on both ends. You don't have to worry about not being able to find your tail, and it's not going to slide back through if you grab a hold and tighten up and go zoop, and then you end up with your tail being pulled halfway down your side. You don't have to worry about that if you put a little clip or something like that on the end. Even a paper clip. You know, paper clips work for this. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to find the knot up here at the top. This is the sleeve. So I'm going to feed it through the sleeve edge, top edge. And I'm going to feed it through the knot on the body. I am not tying it off. I've got my, like I showed you, I've got my thread with a slip knot and the stitch marker. And now what I want to do is I am going to go and get, I'm going to go pick up a bar from the sleeve and a single bar from the body. And I'm going to do that for about 4 or 5 stitches. I'm going to do singles. And by doing the singles, we should end up with a smooth flat bit right up here next to the neck. And then we will alternate picking up 2 from the body and 1 from the sleeve, just trying to work it around so that we can smoothly incorporate. And this looks just like regular, mattress stitch. So there we go. That's coming together. Now there are some of these little, almost like little eyelets going along the edge of the sleeve and along the edge of the body. And that's from doing the slip stitches. And as I get better with it, I will be able to make those happen where I really want them to be. And then that will be even cooler. So I'm just flipping this back so that I can get back to my stitches. And I think it's time for me to just put some music on for me. And I'm going to enjoy my slow stitching in front of my window with the snow outside. And remember, you can do this with a lighter weight yarn. You can do this with, I did it with a 3, and it makes a really nice lightweight t-shirt. This is being done with a size 4 worsted weight, and so it is a little bit warmer, kind of a transition sweater, because I didn't make it long sleeves, but I can wear it with a long sleeve t-shirt. All right, friends, the sweater is completely assembled. I am so tickled by this. Now, I did go in and do some more modifications to it because the neck was really big. And that's because the gauge of this yarn is bigger, and I did not accommodate for that in the width of my panels. So if I was going to do, well, I am going to do this again, and I will probably do it with this kind of yarn again, maybe in a different colorway. But I would probably start at a narrower measurement at the top of my shoulders. Instead of being 20 stitches across, I would probably do 15 for both of the sleeves, just starting at 15 and working. That would give me a little bit more length here in the upper sleeve part where the raglan is. I had to do a little bit of fudging with attaching my sleeves so that I could get the body to fit. So I had to keep the body not stretched, and then I had to stretch the arms a little bit to sort of ease the body and the sleeves together. So I had to ease my sleeves into my body. And I haven't quite figured out this join method yet to make it really tidy. So what I did is I went in and did a little surface crochet right here. I did a little surface, just a slip stitch chain right across the top on the raglan join, just to kind of draw a little bit of a crisper line. Let's see, like this right here. It's not perfect yet. This is only the second time I've done this pattern, and the first time was the prototype where I had that great idea. Oh my gosh, the amazing idea. But we have a raglan sweater now that we can work with and modify the pattern and adjust it to what we like. I am really tickled here. I did go in and crochet around the neckline and over the shoulders to kind of draw it in just a little bit. I went around the sleeves with just a half double crochet. When I had taken the waste yarn off of my sleeves, I had done just a nice slip stitch edge all the way around, which makes it really easy to do your crochet. And it gave me this beautiful little almost pearl bump edge. Down here at the bottom, you can see that same pearl bump edge. And I did the same thing with a half double crochet. I hope that you enjoy looking at these pictures, working on this pattern, and please make sure to tag me at Stephanie B Creativity on Facebook and Instagram, and I'll find it. I hope you enjoyed this. Remember, do something creative, take care of yourself, and be kind out there. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.